Hello. Today we're going to be talking about disability awareness and how your disability affects your learning. In this presentation, I will briefly go through all the slides. However, if you wish to see the slides at your own pace, please select the non-audio version of this PowerPoint. What is a disability? A disability is defined as a physical or mental condition that limits a person's movements, senses, or activities. Here are some examples of disabilities. We have autism, emotional disturbance, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, other health impairment, specific learning disability, traumatic brain injury, visual impairment. Okay, now let's explore disabilities in more detail. First disability we're going to talk about is specific learning disability, which is one of the most common ones. One of the most common ones around uh, amongst your peers, right? A learning disability means that your IQ is average or above average, but what you know or how you show what you know is lower than average, like in such as in reading, writing, and or math. Below, we have two figures. We have on the left, we have Mozart, who is a musical genius, and on the right, we have Albert Einstein, who's considered one of the smartest men who's ever lived. They both have learning disabilities. Here's some other famous people with learning disabilities. We have Thomas Edison, a world famous inventor, George Washington, the first president of the United States, Ozzy Osbourne, singer for Black Sabbath, and Tom Cruise, the actor, has dyslexia. Here are some implications and strategies for learning disabilities. Some implications for learning disability are verbal skills are higher than reading and writing, miss content when reading. Some strategies could be like book on tape, word processor, oral tests, etc. The next disability we're going to talk about is other health impairments. Another health impairment is a medically diagnosed health issue that gets in the way of a student's academic performance. Some common medical reasons that a student is considered as having OHI are having ADD or ADHD, which is me, uh, cancer, epilepsy, asthma, diabetes, heart disease, respiratory disease, and so on. We're gonna focus a little bit more on ADD and ADHD, which is a super common OHI disorder. ADD is a condition that makes it difficult for students to stay focused and on task. ADHD is a condition that makes it difficult for students to stay on task and control their behaviors. In order for you to be considered ADD or ADHD, we're going to go over some of the criteria in the next slide. But the symptoms for ADD or ADHD must be present before you're 7 years old and have to be present in more than one setting, such as like your home, your school, or whatever. Okay. On the left, we have we have box A, and on the right we have box B. And these are all the symptoms for ADD and ADHD. Okay. So if you have like if you have at least um, six or more of these symptoms on each side, then most likely that you have ADD or ADHD. Okay. Some famous people with ADD and ADHD are Jim Carrey, Ron Williams, Michael Phelps, who is the most decorated Olympian of all time, Isaac Newton has epilepsy, Danny Glover also has epilepsy, uh, Lance Armstrong, who he did the Tour de France, by the way, has had cancer, and um, LA Laker legend Magic Johnson had AIDS. Um, Here's some classroom implication and accommodation strategies for OHI, other health impairments. The next disability we're going to talk about is emotional behavior disorders. Students with emotional behavior disorders have either behaviors or emotions that are much higher or lower than that of their peers. These behaviors or emotions are present in multiple settings for a long period of time and must also interfere with the student's education. Here's some example. Here are some types of labels under emotional behavior disorders, which include, not limited to, anxiety, depression, bipolar, mood disorders, aggression, physically or verbally abusive to yourself or others, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, or ODD, oppositional defiance disorder. Uh, some famous people with emotional behavior disorders include Kurt Cobain, lead singer for Nirvana, Britney Spears, Han Solo, Harrison Ford, and the comedian Howie Mandel. Here's some other people with emotional behavior disorders. Ricky Williams, a famous running back from Heisman Trophy winning running back, had anxiety. David Beckham, OCD. The singer John Mayer has anxiety. And Barbra Streisand, the singer, I forgot to put a picture of her, is has anxiety disorder. Okay. Some classroom implications and accommodations for EBD include the following. The next disability we're going to talk about is ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder. Autism is a term used to describe a group of developmental disorders that include Asperger's, Rett syndrome, childhood disintegrated disorder, and pervasive developmental disorder, none otherwise specified. Autism is a spectrum disorder, which means just like there are no two colors alike on the color spectrum, no two children with autism are like either. However, have autism and child must be affected in three specific areas: social skills, communication, and repetitive behaviors. Symptoms of autism. Okay, so we have the three areas. Top one is social. Okay, so yeah, if you know somebody with autism, they might struggle with understanding to give or take an everyday interaction, hard time making eye contact, hard time interpreting what others are thinking or feeling, difficulty controlling actions. Another symptom is communication. Either a person starts or a child learns to speak later instead of like typical like, one more or less starts talking like at 3, 4, 5 years old. May have inability to understand and use body language, tone of speech, may repeat words over and over and over, and take conversation. Meaning, uh, you know, you're talking to someone with autism, they might display like, for example, you ask them a question, they just answer very quick and doesn't follow up. Like for example, like, how is the day? And they would just say fine, and they just stop. They just completely stop the conversation. Right. Another symptom to look for autism is under behaviors. Behaviors. Kids with autism typically appear normal, but may have some odd or repetitive behaviors. For example, like arm flapping, rocking, walking on toes, organizing toys, organizing items, um, have a need of consistency in daily routines, strong interest, or preoccupations. Okay. Again, there's different levels of autism. Just, so some are more severe than others. Okay. So famous people with autism disorder include veterinarian author Thibaut Grandin, professional surfer Claire Marzo, and famous parents with children on the autism spectrum include Dan Marino, was a football quarterback from back in the day. John Travolta was an actor, and Ernie Wells. And here are some classroom application and accommodation strategies for autism. Some examples, there's more, but there's just a few. The next disability we're going to talk about is speech and language impairment. Students with SPI either express or receive language at a much lower level than their peers. Often these students, who others view as slow processors. This is way more than just speech impairment. Articulation, it is really how they process, understand, and use language. Here are some classroom application and combination strategies for speech and language impairment. In the bottom is a picture of Michael J. Fox, who I believe has Parkinson's, which impairs their speech. Next disability we're going to talk about is visual impairment, which is or pretty much you have difficulty seeing. Like on the bottom left, you see a picture of of an image with a blotch in it, so you can't see the full house, right? Uh, a child with a visual impairment, including blindness, has a deficit in visual acuteness, visual field, and visual function. Even with the use of lenses or corrective devices, they are not able to access the general education correctly. And here are some implications, classroom implications, for, and information for students with visual impairments. Just some examples, a lot more. Okay. This concludes this PowerPoint presentation. On a final note, it's not our disabilities, it's our abilities that count. Okay. There's a lot more disabilities that we didn't go over, but we just touch base on the few general ones. Okay. If you have any questions regarding disabilities or what kind of disability you have, please talk to your case manager or your IEP teacher, and they can give you a little bit more detail. Okay. Thank you and take care.